Imagine waking up, turning on your Windows PC, and finding that your favorite productivity tool, that niche photo editor you paid for, or even the essential utility you use for your daily workflow has simply vanished. You head over to the Microsoft Store to re-download it, thinking it might just be a glitch, only to find a blank page or a 404 error. This isn't a hypothetical scenario. Overnight, Microsoft just pulled 47 prominent apps from the American Microsoft Store without a single word of prior warning to the general public. We are talking about everything from creative suites to system optimization tools that thousands of users rely on every single day. The community is absolutely furious, and for a good reason. This move raises massive questions about digital ownership, the future of the Windows ecosystem, and whether we can actually trust a centralized storefront with our software library. Today, we are diving deep into exactly which apps were pulled, the suspicious timing of this mass purging, and what Microsoft is trying to hide behind this sudden cleaning of the digital house. If you value the software you have installed on your machine, you need to hear this, because your favorite app might be next on the chopping block. Let's get straight into the heart of the chaos. The Microsoft Store has always been a bit of a controversial topic. For years, Microsoft has tried to push it as the ultimate safe haven for Windows apps, promising that everything inside is vetted, secure, and optimized for your system. But this recent move feels like a total betrayal of that promise. Among the 47 apps removed, we are seeing a pattern that suggests this wasn't just a random technical error or a routine license expiration. Many of these apps were from independent developers who have been critical of Microsoft's recent shift toward integration with artificial intelligence and the aggressive pushing of Copilot into every corner of the operating system. It appears that Microsoft is quietly narrowing the field, creating an environment where only apps that play perfectly by their new, much more restrictive rules are allowed to survive. The list of removed apps includes several popular third-party file explorers, registry cleaners, and even some lightweight media players that users preferred over the bloated native Windows apps. Why does this matter? Because for many Windows users, the ability to customize their experience is the only reason they haven't switched to a lockdown ecosystem like Chrome OS or even certain versions of Mac OS. By removing these 47 apps, Microsoft is essentially telling its user base that their preferences don't matter as much as the company's corporate roadmap. The outrage on platforms like Reddit and the official Microsoft forums is palpable. Users are reporting that even apps they purchased with hard-earned money are no longer showing up in their library for reinstallation. This hits on the most sensitive nerve in modern tech, which is the fact that we don't really own anything anymore. We are just renting licenses that can be revoked at any moment by a giant corporation in Redmond. But why now? And why specifically 47 apps in one single night? If you look at the broader landscape of what Microsoft is doing right now, the timing starts to make a lot of sense, even if it is incredibly frustrating for us as consumers. Microsoft is currently in the middle of a massive pivot toward what they call the AI PC era. They are rebuilding the foundations of Windows to support massive integration with their neural processing units and cloud services. A lot of the apps that were pulled were built on older frameworks or offered features that Microsoft now wants to monopolize within the core OS. For example, several of the pulled apps offered advanced search capabilities or UI tweaks that Microsoft is now baking directly into Windows 11 under their own branding. Instead of competing with these independent developers, it looks like Microsoft is simply removing the competition from their storefront under the guise of security or policy updates. The lack of transparency is what is truly fueling the fire of this fury. Usually, when a major storefront pulls an app, there is a notification or a blog post explaining that the app violated a specific policy, such as data privacy or security vulnerabilities. In this case, there was nothing. No emails to the users who bought the apps, no public statement to the tech press, and even some of the developers themselves claim they were blindsided. One developer of a popular system utility tweeted that they woke up to a notification that their developer account was in good standing, yet their app was gone from the US store. This suggests a targeted, manual intervention by Microsoft. When a company as big as Microsoft makes a move this significant in total silence, it sends a clear message to the community that they do not feel they owe us an explanation. This situation brings us to a very scary crossroads for the Windows platform. For decades, Windows was the open frontier of computing. You could download an executable file from anywhere, run it, and it worked. But as Microsoft tries to funnel everyone into the Microsoft Store to mimic the success of the Apple App Store, they are taking on the role of the gatekeeper. And as we have seen with this mass removal, the gatekeeper can be arbitrary, moody, and driven by hidden agendas. If Microsoft can pull 47 apps overnight without warning, what is stopping them from pulling 400? What happens to the software that small businesses rely on? What happens to the accessibility tools that help people with disabilities navigate their computers, if those tools don't fit into Microsoft's new vision of an AI-driven future? The technical community is already looking for workarounds, suggesting that users download installers directly from developer websites or move toward alternative package managers. But that defeats the entire purpose of having a centralized store. The store was supposed to be the place where your grandmother could go and safely download a crossword puzzle app without worrying about malware. By purging these apps and causing this much friction, Microsoft is actively destroying the trust they have spent a decade trying to build. Many users are now saying they will never buy another piece of software through the Microsoft Store again, fearing that their purchase could turn into a 404-page by the time they wake up tomorrow. Another layer to this story is the regional aspect. Reports indicate that while these apps were wiped from the American Microsoft Store, some of them still appear in the UK, German, or Australian versions of the store. This suggests that the removal might be tied to specific US regulations or, more likely, a specific marketing push within the United States market. This fragmentation makes the Windows experience even more confusing. Why should a user in New York be blocked from an app that a user in London can still access freely? It creates a tiered system of software availability that feels incredibly regressive in our globalized digital world. It feels like Microsoft is treating the US Store as a testing ground for a more controlled, curated, and ultimately more restricted version of Windows. We also have to consider the impact on the developers. Many of these 47 apps were the primary source of income for small, independent teams. These people spent years perfecting their software, paying their developer fees to Microsoft, and following the rules. To be deplatformed without a clear path for appeal or a specific reason for removal is devastating. It discourages innovation on the Windows platform. If you were a developer today, would you want to build a high-quality app for the Microsoft Store knowing it could be deleted overnight at the whim of an algorithm or a disgruntled executive? This move is going to push the best talent toward other platforms, leaving the Microsoft Store as a wasteland of low-quality clones and official corporate apps, which is exactly the problem it has struggled with since its inception. Let's look at the specific types of apps that were targeted. Interestingly, a high number of the removed apps were related to privacy and telemetry blocking. As Windows gets more aggressive with data collection, these third-party tools have become essential for privacy-conscious users. They allow you to turn off the background processes that track your usage habits and send them back to Microsoft's servers. By removing these tools from the official store, Microsoft is making it much harder for the average user to protect their privacy. Sure, power users can still find these tools on GitHub or through command line interfaces, but the average person who just wants a simple button to stop Windows from spying on them is now out of luck. It's hard not to see this as a calculated move to ensure that Microsoft's data harvesting machine remains uninterrupted. The users are furious part of this title isn't an exaggeration. You can see it in every major tech forum. People are talking about how Windows is becoming more like a service and less like an operating system. When you own an operating system, you control what runs on it. When you are a subscriber to a service, the service provider controls your experience. This mass removal is a giant neon sign flashing the word service at everyone. It's a reminder that under the current Windows 11 model, your PC belongs to Microsoft, and they are just letting you use it as long as you behave and use the apps they approve of. This is a fundamental shift in the philosophy of personal computing, and it is happening right under our noses. I want to talk a bit about the Secure Future initiative that Microsoft announced recently. They claimed they would be making Windows more secure than ever before. While that sounds great on paper, security is often used as a catch-all excuse for removing software that the company doesn't like. If an app lets you modify a system file to change your taskbar color, Microsoft could technically call that a security risk, because it touches the system core. By framing this purge as a security measure, Microsoft can deflect criticism from the media, but the users know better. They know that a calculator app or a specialized text editor isn't a threat to national security. They know that this is about control and monetization. If you are one of the people affected by this, what can you do? First, stop relying on the Microsoft Store as your primary source of truth for software. It's a hard pill to swallow because the convenience was the whole point, but it's clear that the store is no longer a stable repository. Start keeping your own backups of installer files. Look into package managers that pull directly from developer repositories rather than a corporate-controlled store. We are moving back to an era where we have to be more proactive about managing our own digital libraries, almost like we did in the early 2000s. The dream of a perfectly managed, safe, and permanent cloud-based store on Windows is effectively over after this stunt. Microsoft's silence is deafening, but the noise from the community is getting louder. We have seen in the past that if enough people make a stir, Microsoft might backtrack or at least offer a half-hearted explanation. But until that happens, we are in a state of digital limbo. This overnight purge of 47 apps is a landmark moment in the history of Windows 11. It marks the point where the company decided that their ecosystem's purity and their corporate goals outweighed the needs and the rights of their users. Whether this was a mistake by an overzealous algorithm or a deliberate policy shift, the damage is done. Trust is easy to break and incredibly hard to rebuild, especially in the tech world where users are already feeling fatigued by constant updates, forced reboots, and increasing advertisements in their start menus. Another worrying trend noticed by tech analysts is that several of the removed apps were open-source projects that had been packaged for the store. Some of these projects offered advanced features that Microsoft is planning to introduce as paid add-ons for their premium subscriptions. If this is true, it points to a very predatory behavior where Microsoft identifies successful, free, or low-cost alternatives on their platform and removes them to clear the path for their own paid services. It's a classic move from the big tech playbook, but seeing it happen on such a wide scale in a single night is unprecedented even for them. It reminds us that convenience often comes at the cost of competition and consumer choice. The broader implications for the American market are also significant. Why was the American store targeted specifically? It could be that the US is the most profitable market for Microsoft's new AI services, and they want to ensure no third-party apps distract from that. Or it could be a response to pending legislation regarding App Store fairness, where Microsoft is trying to clean house before new rules go into effect. Whatever the reason, it puts American Windows users at a disadvantage compared to their international counterparts. It creates a skewed version of the OS where certain functionalities are just missing. As we look toward the future, what does this mean for the next version of Windows? Rumors of Windows 12 or a major Windows 11.1 update are everywhere. If this purge is a precursor to that, we can expect the next version of the world's most popular OS to be even more walled off. Microsoft is likely aiming for a future where every app is a containerized, cloud-verified package that gives the user zero access to the underlying system. While this is great for preventing certain types of malware, it is terrible for the power user, the tinkerer, the developer, and the professional who needs their machine to work in a very specific way. We are losing the personal and personal computer. For those who are listening and haven't checked their system yet, I highly recommend you audit the apps you've installed via the store. If you find that one of your apps is missing, don't panic, but start looking for the developer's official website immediately. In many cases, you can transition your license or at least find a standalone installer that won't be subject to Microsoft's sudden deletions. This is a wake-up call for all of us. We have become too comfortable letting big companies manage our digital lives. We assumed that because we paid for something, it would always be there. This 47 app disappearance proves that in the digital age, nothing is permanent if it lives on someone else's server. The fury we see today isn't just about 47 apps. It's about the cumulative frustration of a user base that feels ignored. It's about the recall feature that tracks everything you do. It's about the ads in the settings menu. And now it's about having your software library raided in the middle of the night. People are tired of being treated like products instead of customers. Microsoft needs to realize that Windows is a tool, not a billboard or a controlled experiment. If they continue down this path of arbitrary removals and forced integrations, they might find that their loyal user base has finally had enough and is willing to cross the bridge to Linux or elsewhere, even if it comes with a learning curve. The tech landscape is shifting rapidly, and Microsoft is clearly trying to position itself at the top of the food chain. But in their rush to dominate the AI space and secure their ecosystem, they are trampling over the very people who made Windows the dominant platform it is today. Small developers and power users are the backbone of any healthy OS. When you alienate them, the platform starts to wither from the inside out. This move on the American store is a major red flag, and it should serve as a warning to everyone in the tech space. Monitor your tools, protect your data, and never assume that a software giant has your best interests at heart. As we move forward, we will be keeping a very close eye on the remaining apps in the store. If this was indeed the first wave of a larger purge, we could be seeing hundreds more disappear in the coming weeks. The question is, which ones will be next? Will it be the alternative browsers, the third-party email clients, the specialized coding environments? The precedent has been set, and the gate is closing. This is a story about more than just 47 icons disappearing from a screen. It is a story about who actually controls the devices in our pockets and on our desks. Microsoft has made their move, and the community has responded with a roar of disapproval. Now the ball is back in Microsoft's court. Will they provide the transparency the community is demanding, or will they continue to ignore the very people who keep their business running? Only time will tell, but for now, the message is clear. Be careful what you buy in the Microsoft Store, because it might not be yours to keep tomorrow. What is truly remarkable is the variety of the apps that were hit. Usually a store purge targets copycat apps, or apps that are literal scams. But the 47 apps pulled here included legitimate, well-reviewed pieces of software with thousands of 4- and 5-star ratings. These weren't low-effort garbage. These were useful tools. This makes the removal feel even more like a policy-driven cleanup rather than a security or quality control measure. It feels like Microsoft is clearing away the underbrush to make room for their own corporate monoliths. It's a strategy that might look good on a quarterly earnings report under ecosystem growth, but it feels like a punch in the gut to the actual humans using the software. To wrap this up, the situation is evolving. We are reaching out to the developers of the affected apps to get their side of the story and to see if they've received any private communication from Microsoft since the apps went down. The tech world is small, and news travels fast. If this truly was a targeted hit on apps that provide privacy or customization, it will go down as one of the most anti-consumer moves in Microsoft's history. Stay vigilant, back up your software, and keep demanding answers. Your digital world shouldn't be subject to change without notice just because a corporation decided to pivot its strategy overnight. Windows was built on the idea of being a platform for everyone, and it is our job as the community to make sure it stays that way, even when the company behind it seems to have forgotten its roots. Keep your eyes on your taskbar and your fingers on your backup drives, because the era of predictable personal computing is undergoing a very turbulent transformation. This is about trust. And right now, Microsoft's credit is looking very, very low. The fury is justified, and the conversation is just beginning. We will stay on top of this story as more details emerge about why these specific 47 apps were chosen for deletion. Until then, stay informed and stay skeptical of the platforms that claim to manage your software for you. Control is being taken away, and it is up to us to notice before the store is completely empty of everything but Microsoft's own products. This is the state of tech today, and it is a wake-up call we can't afford to ignore.